Dwight David Eisenhower, president from the great state of Kansas. He's president for most of the 1950s, and we are going to take a look at some of the things going on during his administration right now. First of all, let's talk about brinkmanship. Brinkmanship is an addition to the foreign policy of containment. If you think of containment as a house, then brinkmanship would be sort of an addition to that house. And it's the addition to the house that holds all of the weapons, because this is basically what brinkmanship is. Brinkmanship is getting as close as possible to war without actually going to war. A brink just means ledge or edge. It's where if you take one more step, you're going to fall off the cliff. That is brinkmanship. Getting as close as you can to war without actually being at war. In the 1950s, communism is still seen as a threat to the United States and the rest of the free world. Under brinkmanship, you're either going to get what you want or you're going to go to war. There are some components to brinkmanship, and we're going to look at them right now. Number one, massive retaliation. Massive retaliation is not so much eye for an eye, but an eye for an eye and an ear, and your entire head, and also your torso, plus an arm. Probably both your legs too. If you punch me, I'm going to punch you back with a nuke. The idea here is that it is a retaliation, a reaction, acting back from provocation, reacting in such a way where you take things to the next level. Now, what's the problem with this? Well, if you take something to the next level, if you exercise massive retaliation, the other side is probably going to massively retaliate too. And you're just going to get this sort of escalation of retaliation to the point where maybe nobody is left. And that brings us to the next point. Mutually assured destruction. The idea here is that whoever shoots first dies second. Mutually assured destruction. Both sides are going to lose because no one's going to be left once the fighting ends. Everybody's going to be dead. Mutually assured destruction. From 1945 to 1949, the United States was the lone superpower in the world, but only because we had the atomic bomb, or that was the main reason, because of the atomic bomb. In 1949, the Soviets have developed their own atomic bomb, and they reach our level. Now there's two of us on the world stage that can be considered superpowers. And we're both ready to wipe each other off the face of the earth. And we have the technology and the power to do that at this point. Mutually assured destruction. Domino theory is the idea that if communism spreads to some place, that it just by being in that area is going to cause other places to gravitate towards communism as well. So let's say Missouri becomes communist. The idea here is that now Kansas is under the threat of becoming communist too. So is Iowa. So is Arkansas, because they're in that area. So if communism goes to Missouri, it's very possible that it could spread to Kansas, and then Colorado, and then Utah, and then Nevada, and then California. So it's the idea that this domino reaction, this chain reaction, will lead to communism, and eventually communism will be all over the world. Domino theory. During the Eisenhower administration, we get the interstate highway system. He sold this to the public on the idea that if we were ever under attack from the Soviets, we would need to be able to mobilize very quickly. So we built the entire system that we have today, the interstate highway system. Previous to the 1950s, we didn't have things like I-435 or I-35. All we had were those highways like Route 66. That's probably the most famous one. We didn't have an actual interstate system. Interestingly enough, he gets the idea from a guy named Adolf Hitler. Yeah, Germany created the Autobahn, and we basically stole that from them and created our interstate highway system. And we use it to this day. If you've ever actually seen a convoy going down the interstate, a military convoy, it actually kind of looks odd because that's not really what we think of it being used for, but that was the idea when the interstate system was built. CIA and covert ops. This is one of the more interesting elements of the Eisenhower administration. This is the idea that we will go in and spy, murder, assassinate, bribe, blackmail any sort of government that we feel needs to act more in our own interests. So in places like Guatemala and Iran, we actually use these tactics, spying and assassinating people, in order to promote American interests. Maybe not the most ethical thing to do, but you have to weigh that against the best interests of the United States as a nation. And the CIA really expands, really grows, really gets more powerful